Hello and welcome back to Children of Misery. We're going to be playing a little game today. Just going to get my file set up and then we'll jump right in and get started. I'll introduce you to what we're doing. Oh, hello. I see someone in the chat. Welcome. Okay. Let's get our document up and then I will show you what we're doing. So if you're unfamiliar with this channel and this world building project, this is Children of Misery. It centers around a city called Misery, and the main protagonists are children. Kind of a grim, gothic feel to it. So we got... Whoa, that is so tiny. Let's make that a little bigger. And maybe increase the flow? That looks better. So, Misery, what do we know about it? It is a coastal city. And it is in the country of Dremlock. However, I have done very little world building for the country that it's in, and I figured this would be a great time to do that. Let me pull up the Misery map, just for reference. Here we go. So this is the map. Whoop, that's so big. Let's make that a little smaller. So this is the map that I made for this setting, for the city. It's got a lot of different districts, a lot of landmarks, and I used the game called Ex Novo to build it. So before it looked all nice like this, it used to look like this while I was playing the game and getting everything set up. So you could see kind of how everything translated into it. We sort of planned out the basic roads and routes. We had this wall encircling everything. We had the skull with the waterfalls crying out of it into these rivers. We had this kind of central park area, government building. This was a big landmark here with what would eventually be the clock tower. We had the mine as well. And then we went in and cleaned it up a little bit afterward and made it a bit more coherent. So we added an island after the fact because I wanted the carnival to be kind of out across this channel. And overall it kind of has this Gothic inspiration. So like cities like Prague would be a really good example for that sort of architectural style, but also semi like old New York, like 1800s New York as well, as far as like density and like busyness. So we're stealing from all over. But we've got our little mountain range, got a little forest. But I'm just gonna live play this game and we'll do our world building here. So let me grab the rules so I can show you. This is Ex Novo. So it is a map making game. You can play it with multiple people, but I've been playing it solo just to make maps, and it's been a really great resource for making maps for tabletop campaigns. So whenever I need just like a real quick map, or if I need to like dive into world building and making a kind of a fleshed out place for players to interact with. This is really nice because it goes through your city's building phases kind of chronologically. So just like a real city would develop, it would start small and kind of spread out. That's essentially what you're doing in here. So we'll decide kind of what our parameters are for everything. Since I've already been developing this world for a while, I do have quite a number of parameters. So we'll tweak the game a little bit. It's not, I don't know how well this will translate. It's designed for city building, not for country building. So we're just going to kind of expand everything and tweak it as we go. But I really like it as a framework for everything because it deals with different like population densities. It deals with factions of power, who's in control, who's not. So here's a real brief preview of all the little pictures. And this game currently has a Kickstarter going as I'm streaming this for a second edition and a physical edition. So that's really exciting. I'm curious to see what changes they'll make into the future for this game. These tables are really what I'm after. So I have them up on a separate document with just the tables so we can look at them later. But all of these 3-numbered ones are events that could possibly happen during the development of your city. So there's a lot of prompts, and you can kind of interpret them however you want. So here they are by themselves. We'll just start with that. I really like the table chart just because it's a nice quick overview of the whole thing. So first thing we're going to do is pick the target size and the target age of our city. So I'm going to put that off to the side and we can do that. Okay, so in terms of size, we are going to go with the largest size, which is a metropolis, just because we're doing a whole country, and that's what I chose for the city as well when doing it on that scale. So we're going to have 15. Actually, I should probably do this off to the side. I'm going to make a new layer just for the game notes. And I'm actually going to change my brush out. The pencil's nice, but I think I want more of a, yeah, maybe like a rough inky. That'd be nice. Okay, so we're going to have 15 lines, and we're going to get 25 citizens, or citizen tokens. To start out with, and I'll explain kind of how those work in a bit. And then for the age, we're going to go with the oldest possible because that's what I did for the other one. So it's also going to be 25. Here we go. Development phases. And to keep track of that, I'm gonna have my my D20 on my desk. So once we get down to 20, then I'll switch over to using that as a counter. Really helpful to have dice while you're doing this. D6s will also be very useful because that's what we'll use for a lot of the other stuff. So what's fun about this with all these tables is you can, when you're playing this game, you can actually randomize everything if you wanted to. So you could roll for how big your city is and how old it is. But for our purposes today, we're just going to choose what is going to be best. Awesome. So before we move on to that, let's just go back and talk about the lines. So we're going to draw 15 lines on this map, and these are just sort of abstract representations of where things are. They don't have to be borders per se. They could end up being rivers, they could end up being walls, it could be anything. So just some abstract guidelines. So I'll make a guideline layer. And I'm actually going to turn the opacity down to like 25-ish. Yeah, that'll work just fine. And I'm going to choose kind of where misery is going to be located on this map because I do want to give it some space for its own thing. So maybe somewhere like here. It's a coastal city, so I want to have some room kind of off to the side. So we'll say Misery's here. Misery has an island off the coast, as we saw from that map. I'll pull it up again. So it has an island, and it kind of goes out to the left and down. So it's kind of at a funny little corner of everything with some mountain ranges off to the side. So I feel like one abstract line is just going to be this. Or maybe something like that. We'll just keep doing this till I have a line that I like. Oh, hey, Anna's here. Hello. I'm playing a map making game called Ex Novo. This is the game and what it looks like. But we're in the midst of developing phase. So I've got to draw 15 lines to kind of represent abstract things. So I have to put in place the lines that I need for the existing city because it's on the coast. So I'm guesstimating it's going to be somewhere around there on the map. And then we'll just see what happens with the rest. I'll do a line up here. I'll do a line down there. We'll do something like that, maybe. So how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do. I guess we've got some roads kind of going up and down too, so maybe we could do. Seven. 8. Yeah, I'll extend that a little bit. And maybe something over here. 9. 10. So we need 5 more. 11. 12. Where else should we put a line? I feel like this has a nice big space in it. $13. 14. 15. Sure. So, looks like a mess, but these are just going to be our very, very light guidelines for drawing on top of. We do not have to follow them exactly. We can interpret them however we want. So there's that done. Grab our rules. Yes, and then we set our age. Okay, so that's discussion phase finished from our chart. So phase 2 is going to be the founding phase. We're going to have to determine the major geography and terrain features, community, all that stuff. So I'm just going to scroll down so you guys can see it. So for geography, I guess how many times do we do this? Okay, so we do it 4 times for terrain features. Okay, so we do geography once, it looks like. So normally we would roll for this, but because we already have a pre-established history, we're just going to choose what makes sense for this country. We do have mountains. We do have forests. We do have a coastline. Yeah, I'm realizing now this terrain table really only applies to cities, because countries are kind of going to have most of this stuff. But we could always reference it for ideas. So why don't I just roll on this and see what we get? 8 is Riverland. So yeah, there's probably a river on here somewhere. We'll look at that and discuss it in a bit. I will put in the mountains, just because that's going to be really important. So we'll draw this above our guideline for our terrain. Because Misery's here, and we are going to have mountains sort of up and around. I imagine the mountains sort of follow this sort of guideline. So we'll just sketch that in for now. Reference my city map again, just to see where we're at. Yeah. think that makes sense. The mountains on mine sort of curve a bit in, so maybe we'll redirect it. We can follow kind of this curve along the top, and that'll give us a general look to things that we like. Maybe they kind of peter off. Something like that. And then terrain features. We need to roll 4 of these. Some of these are going to be ineligible, I feel like, just based on what I know about Misery and kind of where it's at, and then thinking about the country that it's in. I think I'm going to rule out Volcano. I don't think there are any volcanic, any sort of volcanic activities happening on this country. Caves, hills, woods, river. Yeah, so let's go ahead and roll for it. I've got my dice. 7 is a river. 4 is mountains. That makes sense. 5 is hills. That makes sense. We can kind of go from the mountains to a hilly area. 11 is a trench. That's interesting. We'll see if that fits our setting or not. And the last roll is 9, a wetland. Interesting. Swamp or marsh. Does that make sense, or should we go for something else? I almost feel like barren would make more sense. But yeah, let's figure out the other one. So we've got a river. We know that there is a... We know that we have a coastline off to the side here. And I might need to scale this and kind of expand it a bit. A swamp and marsh would be quite miserable. I suppose it would. There's not really any swamps in Misery. It's kind of nestled between 2 rivers. But maybe on the outskirts, it could be a bit more wet. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to scale this in a little bit. Just to give me some room to expand. So I think that's going to continue down. I think this can Continue out and maybe up. It doesn't have to be perfect, because this game always looks kind of meh before we clean it up. So if Misery is kind of down here, it would be kind of fun to have other cities kind of like up in this region. I almost want this to sort of go in on itself. That could be fun. It's hard thinking so large scale with this game. I'm used to having it just be the one city and not really worried about the like coastal borders so much, or at least if you have a coastal border, you kind of only need the one line. But now I have to think about like what is the overall shape of this continent that we're on. And where's the border of this thing? Because I do sort of imagine it in a location similar to like northern France. So maybe this continues up like that. Or maybe it just continues up here. And then we have to figure out where the country border is as well, and kind of where everything else is at. The relationship that I imagine Misery has with its country of Drumlock is sort of how, I guess the best analogy would be like Chicago. How Chicago is to Illinois is how Misery is to Drumlock, where a lot of people are going to recognize the city name, but they may not be very familiar with the overall state or district that it's in. And I'm actually going to move some things around, because I think that could be nudged just a little bit. And it still follows our general guide. In fact, it might even follow it better if I have it kind of curve in like that. So Misery kind of ends up being here more than up there. Maybe we can adjust. Something like that. And sort of also what I'm picturing is the sort of how I live in the Pacific Northwest, so we have a mountain range that's kind of cutting off this coastline here, and everything toward the sea usually is very kind of lush and green. Everything to the right of mountain ranges like that, or I guess whatever direction opposite of the coast, this usually ends up becoming kind of dry. Not necessarily barren. You can still grow stuff there, but it's much easier to grow it where there's, all the water coming in from the sea. So I imagine a lot of the country is sort of this more dry or arid environment. But we had a river, so we have a couple rivers that we can draw. Because we've got the... This is where the Titan died. So we'll put a little skull. So there's 1. There's 2. Which means that the island is sort of off over there somewhere. This needs to come up at a little bit different angle. We'll get into the actual city development pretty soon. I just want to make sure that the bones of this work. So this is definitely a river. I imagine that there's probably some rivers kind of flowing up through here. Maybe, well, I guess like there's like a channel up through there. That could be a river. We look at some actual river maps. There we go. This is what I want. I just want to see what rivers to the right of mountains look like, away from the coast. Okay, so there could be something. There could be something off the back of this then that sort of flows down. We could follow this kind of squiggly line that we've got going. Because there could be a river that kind of flows out from the other side of this mountain. Something like that. We could have a split up here. And there could be other splits as well. Kind of river water flowing off of the mountain and meeting in. One thing about rivers is that they rarely ever do anything like this. That's one thing that I've noticed on people making their own fantasy maps is that a lot of people have river splits, which are very rare occurrences. Water is usually always gonna, pretty much always gonna follow the path of least resistance. So most of the time, branches of rivers are gonna join into a larger source, as opposed to the opposite way around. So we'll take that into account. Because water is lazy. Yes, it is. That being said, you can have sort of what the Nile River does, where there's like this river like delta, and you got all these little like island things. I guess this could be our swampy area then, if that's the case. Because we could do something. We could do something with that if we stay true to the game and actually do what I rolled. And we could do something kind of like that, where there's sort of these little pocket islands forming around it. Yeah, and then you could have little... This could be our little marshy area. Where do these rivers connect, though? This is going to be going to more like high elevation areas. I guess we still have this big circle thing. It could be just kind of like another set of like hilly areas kind of beyond. Kind of beyond this point. That would make sense. Just have more of these little hills just beyond. That way there's a kind of a gradual change in terrain. Cool. That's looking nice. What else did we roll? We did mountains, we did hills, we did river. We haven't done trench. I think we rolled a trench at some point. How do trenches form? We also live in a fantasy world here, so the The trench could be artificial because there's giant titans that were roaming around at some point. So it is entirely because this is the right here in Misery is the like death bed of a titan. So we could, with that knowledge, sort of have a battlefield area where maybe they were fighting. It's like it would make sense that they would be battling kind of in this area. However, if I put a trench over here, it's just gonna fill with water. There are other titans though that were roaming around, so we could do something of that sort. Just like something weird. Like this like straight line here could be a really interesting just like scar on the land. Just like weird and unnaturally straight and just like stretching for miles. Like just this enormous trench carved by magic. Like somebody shot a magic beam. Because like if you're viewing this from up above, you would see this and just be like, what the heck? Like what made that? Cool. There's our trench. I think that concludes the terrain. What's next? Founding location and settlement. I'll pull up those tables. These are interesting tables. So this gets into more of the history behind our setting. The purpose of the location. So this is going to be the original location. So Misery is not the oldest city. It's a very old city, but it is not. I don't want it to be like the founding city because it appeared after the death of the Titan because that's where its body laid and that's where all the resources were. So let's just roll and see what we get, and if it fits, we'll use it. 6 useful natural resources. That makes sense. I'm going to roll one more time just to see what else we get. And 7, abundant edible plants. I like useful natural resources. I think that makes a lot of sense. We do have these mountains here. I have a place in Misery where mining takes place, so if we put a little... Maybe if I change the color. This is a little mining area down here. I imagine there are other places where it is beneficial for mining. I imagine you could probably get gold out of this river up here. So I'm gonna put another one kind of up there. Yeah, I could see the other side of this having some mining as well. Just like a number of like mining towns. And also for safety, because during the era where Titans were roaming around, it was probably beneficial to be close to mountains where you could hide, or forests, because this whole area over here is probably forested. I wonder. I bet there's. I bet there's probably natural resources that came out of this little scar over here as well. I could see there being a little mining town. So what we need to do is add a resource. Here's the game notes. And put 2 power tokens by it. So we're going to say that this is mining, and for power tokens, I'm going to use red. And the way that power tokens work is it's really just a way to measure how much worth or how much influence that thing has. So yeah, I think that makes sense. Next one on the table is purpose for deciding to settle. Let's roll and see what we get. 5, refugees in need. Something destroyed their last home. What disaster was it? What important customs and memories did they preserve? Add the first district and move a citizen token on it. I think that makes so much sense given the world history I have going. Magic entered the world, Titans are roaming around, people need a safe place to live. I think this is a decent place to hide. So maybe they set up, let's set up our first district. And we'll put a citizen token on it. Where should that be? I'm thinking maybe like up here, because these 2 rivers technically don't exist yet. If we're going through this chronologically, these rivers didn't appear until the Titan fell here and basically broke whatever water source was here, whatever natural spring was happening, and then just started pouring out of its eye sockets. So this area of misery doesn't truly exist yet. So I think up here, up in the north side toward the coast makes sense, because you've got water and you've got resources and you've got a place to hide, and I imagine there's a lot of forests on this side as well. So I think that would be a great place for our first district. So I'm just going to kind of mark it out. Let's do it in a different color. I'll do it in gray. Something like that. Just to kind of roughly follow this. So this will be our first district that's got the river in between. And for citizen token, let's use pink. So I'm going to do that. So the way that citizen tokens work is we have our game notes. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, those can exist on the game note layer. I think that's fine. So we've used one of those. We're going to mark it off. This just represents population density. So 1 citizen token is a very low density place. 2 citizen tokens is kind of medium density, and 3 is very high density. So that's what we've got going so far. Cool. So that concludes that phase. I'll bring the rules back up so we can see. So yeah, they're looking for a safe place to live because there's this big catastrophic event. Next, we need the power hierarchy, the community factions, and the name of our city, in this case, country. And then we'll get right into the base of the game. So what kind of a hierarchy do they have? Let's roll for that. Let's see, 3. Improvisational hierarchy. Experts or rulers are called together when needed. Who manages this process? How are these people selected? I think for the chronological development of this nation, that makes sense. I think whatever power structures they had originally are sort of up in the air. So yeah, draw the route that led here. So how did they get here? I imagine they kind of came from all over. I think the best way to get up here would be either from the north, if you like cross the channel to get here and then kind of made your way down. This mainly just kind of helps establish roads and trade routes. I'm actually going to go and delete this. Oops. Oh no, that's on its own layer. Never mind. We don't need to delete this. But yeah, I imagine the pilgrimage was sort of landing up in this area and then making their way down toward the mountains, toward the rivers. There's probably people that found this port as well. I imagine it'd be pretty... There's a lot of forested area here for Misery, so I imagine it'd be pretty difficult without any pre-established roads to go up this way. So yeah, we'll say that is sort of the main route that people use to get here. Okay, next. Power factions. How are people getting along? 3. Internal tensions. 2 factions, one in control, but struggling, the other resisting. What makes it hard for the leading faction to remain in control? Add 2 factions, move 1 power token on a faction. Does that make sense for this? I could also see uneasy allies. And there's probably people that are already here. We'll go with what we rolled. Internal tensions, 1 in control. So there's a flux of people that come into this probably small town that's ideally located for safety from these titans. So we've got the... Go back to our game notes. We've got 2 factions. Let's give them some... we have the native citizens. And we'll give them a symbol. Just a little triangle. A little black triangle. And then we have the refugees, who do bring a lot of new skills, new faces into the community, but they also didn't start here. They kind of just came and settled. I imagine basically entire countries are fleeing to try and get somewhere else based on where Titans are appearing. And we'll give them a... We'll just give them a square. And then power token. I'm going to say the people who are here are currently in control. But because there's a lot of new people coming in, they're going to be vastly outnumbered pretty soon as people are flocking. Okay, that concludes the founding phase. Now we get to go into the development phase. This is really straightforward. We're just going to keep doing this until we run out of turns. We have historical events. We do whatever happens there, and then natural growth. If it makes sense, we can add a district to the map and move a citizen token from the pool to that district. This is pretty much the main part of the game, so I'll show you the chart here. So it starts here. We have the one, we're going to roll 3d6. I'm just going to roll 1d6 3 times. And whatever number we land on, that's what's going to happen. So we've got politics, so warfare is in the 1s, politics is 2, economy is 3, culture is 4, infrastructure is 5, events, environmental events is 6. Some of these are really crazy, so I'm excited to see what we roll. But I'll put that off to the side where I can see it. And let's roll our first event. 5, 6, 3. 5, 6, 3 is... A sub-center in a district forms. A neighborhood specialized so intensively and so successfully, it had to become its very own sub-district. What makes this place so distinct. Add a district within a district. Well, we only have one. So, yeah, I guess with that in mind, grab my little gray marker here. I feel like the river then is gonna sort of determine the boundary between this district and the other one. I think they just become crazy good at mining resources. And I'm going to adjust the boundary of this just a bit so that it follows this guideline. And then I'll adjust this one as well to follow this upper one a bit more. And add a citizen token. Yes, I think the refugees come in. I think they firmly establish themselves in this upper district and just go to town building. I think they are forced to become really good at building. And then natural growth. I think that's enough growth for this phase, so we'll skip that. So now we are at... So that's our first phase out of the way. And we used another citizen token. So we can do that. Then we just do it again. 5, 3, 6. 5, 3, 6 is an unofficial market is opened. A black market, street vendors, or backdoor bazaars. Why does commerce hide from the watchful eye of authorities? What is sold? At a landmark or a resource. Okay, so they find something to sell. What are they selling? What do you guys think? What would they be selling so early on that it needs to be hidden? It could be that the refugees sort of start establishing their own trade inside this already established country or city. That could be really interesting. Rare minerals. I would say, yeah, because there's already a mining facility here. So maybe they start like a gold market kind of outside of the already established citizens. There is a rare mineral that will eventually come into play once the Titan dies. So once Misery happens, basically everything that's happening up here now is just going to move down here because Marrow is a huge resource in Misery, and it's what goes into the creation of magic items. It's basically just high concentration magic, mana in physical form, and really dangerous if handled improperly. But this hasn't happened yet. So maybe up here on this like little coastline, we could establish like a trade port. I don't think I need to establish any new resource. I think it's just the resources we already have. What's a symbol for trade? Yeah, I guess just a $sign. Cool. So that's going to become sort of a port for trading minerals. So they're making money. Do we need any more natural growth? I don't think so. I think we're fine where we are. So we can mark off that. And we'll go again. 4, 4, 3. Let's see what 443 has in store. This is a cultural event. 443. Thinkers and philosophers appear. Cynics, critics, and classical realists. Introspective thought is encouraged and the city becomes known for it. What is the worldview of these thinkers? Add a resource. Yeah, I think with all these people coming in from all over the world, I think maybe they start schooling, which is actually something that it's actually a huge resource in Misery, so that makes sense that they would establish education just with all the people that they have coming in now. Okay, so we don't have to add anything to the map. We just have to add a resource. And I'm just going to put a little, maybe a little light bulb down here. For all those bright ideas. I can't see that at all. I'm just going to draw it in black. Ideas. Education. So that'll be 22. Do we want to expand? Yeah, I think I'll add another district in here. And we could put a citizen token down here. Just more coastal areas. I don't think it's going to be hugely populated. Cool. Next, let's roll again. 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. Economic crisis. Stocks plummet. Prices rise. Goods spoil. What was this, mismanagement or economic sabotage? Do the responsible get away unscathed? Remove a resource. A faction loses power. Oh, man. I feel like it has to do with this kind of back alley market that we established. Because then all the resources that would have been going toward the original settlers are now being diverted. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it's intentional. I think it is economic sabotage in that case. Like, they clearly want to form their own territory here. Remove a resource. I don't really have a lot of resources to get rid of, because I can't really get rid of mining. I can remove power. I think we remove a power function from the citizens up there. That makes sense. Okay, why are you not letting me pan? There we go. I don't think I'm going to remove a resource. I don't think it makes sense to do that. So let's just move on to 5, 1, 4. 5, 1, 4 is... Oh, shoot. The seat of government is moved. A new hut for the wise man or a seat of parliament. What is the aim of this new edifice? Secrecy, intimidation, efficiency? Add a landmark. Or remove a landmark. Yeah, yeah, they absolutely establish a government. What the heck? This is getting wild. We've got a little city up here being established. I'll just add a little crown. And I think they also establish their own district. I think it makes sense for them to expand. So I think there's more people up here. For sure, for sure. So we'll also remove a citizen token. That makes total sense. And then did I mark that already? I actually don't remember. Okay, next one. 3, 3, 1. Let's see what 331 has in store. 331 is good times. A quiet, mostly happy period of modest progress. Content lives in peace. Who is praised for this, or who is taken for granted? Are the city's enemies jealous? Add a district. Yeah, I think this new government is working. I think they came in and sort of, not through warfare took it over, but just by being here and forcing the existing people to conform. It's like it's a hostile takeover, but like, what can you do when there's these giants roaming around? You just go for who's strongest. So we'll establish some more territory. I think they would... expand. Oh my goodness. I think they would expand southward. So we'll go ahead and establish the Misery District. And we'll add a citizen token down there. Actually, you know what? For the history of this, I'm not going to spoil anything. I actually am going to put it up here as its own thing. And 20. Cool, now I can finally use my D20 on my desk to mark the dev phases. In fact, if I had 2 of them, that would be ideal, but we'll make do. Cool. We're growing. 416 is the next one. 416 is... internal tensions rise. Different beliefs or ethnicities clash. What makes them incompatible? What event led to the rise in this tension? A faction gains power. Yeah, I think the refugees definitely are gaining a lot of power in this forceful takeover. I think the balance of power is shifting, and the people who are already here are not happy about it. That makes a lot of sense. Let's roll again. Actually, let me mark my counter here. So we are at 19. Six, 5, 1. 6 is traditionally not great, but we'll see. 6, 5, 1. A wild danger grows. A danger from the wilderness multiplies and intensifies. What does the threat come to pass? Who suffers were their warning signs? Remove something. Okay. So what does this mean for where we're at now? Each of these turns is basically years, potentially decades. So what is a danger that that wild danger grows? Maybe the Titans are roaming closer. Does the threat come to pass? We're pretty early on in this still. Think I think with people, I think with civilization kind of being reestablished and Titans are running around, I think there are better tracking of their like paths and where they're going, and I think things are changing. So I don't think they come here directly yet. I think this city is pretty well hidden away right now. They have the mountains, they have the forests, so they're not like overtly visible per se. Because that's the thing about like settlements during this time period is they can't really build huge settlements. So it actually makes a lot of sense that they're more spread out like this because we only have one citizen token in each district still. Rather than being all condensed in one area, it would actually be more beneficial for them to be kind of widespread and sort of share resources through trade routes and move through the trees where they can't be noticed. So I think maybe over to the east, there are things happening. And people are worried that this danger is going to affect them. Remove something. Let's remove this trade port because I think that is going to be the most visible thing to the Titans. I think they cease outside trade for a little bit just until things settle down. That'll be 18. Let's roll our dice again. That's a 5 and a 4 and a 1. To the countryside. People move to the suburbs or to the country. What makes this so attractive? Who gets left behind? Move a citizen token from an existing district to create a new district. Interesting. I don't know if that makes sense for where things are right now. I don't think they would upright move a whole district away from the safety that they already have. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to re-roll. I'm going to re-roll this. If I were playing this normally, I would not re-roll, but because we have an established history, I think I'm going to pick something different. Okay, 6, 1, 3. Six, 1, 3 is famine. That's not great. The weak and sick perish first. How does the community adapt? What terrible measures do they have to take? Remove a resource and a district. Oh my goodness. Okay. I am going to take this because I think it'll make sense. So they shut down their trade port because out of fear, but because they shut down their trade port, they're not making income anymore. They're not getting anything in from other places currently. So yeah, I think they start running out of food. Which district makes the most sense to eliminate? And then eliminate a resource. I think I'm just gonna temporarily suspend the the ideas in education, and we're gonna remove. Actually, what does it say? It says remove a district. It doesn't necessarily say remove a citizen token. So I'm actually gonna have this go up here. And we'll remove this coastal, this outward one. I think that one is probably more exposed. I think more people want to move inland toward the mountains so that they're less exposed. Okay, let's mark that off. Two, 1, 3. Two, 1, 3. The death of a beloved leader. Was the leader murdered by conspirators? Was it illness, old age? How will the leader be remembered? A faction loses or gains power. So maybe the established leader, or at least maybe not individual leader, but maybe the hierarchy that the refugees have established is kind of falling apart. I think the people that have been living here for a long time are starting to gain power again. That would make sense. What do you guys think? Was this intentional removal, or was it just illness, or maybe the famine had something to do with it? How will the leader be remembered? Or at least that leader power structure. It did bring in some peace, but kind of fell apart during this tumultuous period that we're in. And while you guys are doing that, I'm going to use the growth and development phase to bring back this district. And I'll just roll for the next one. 6, 1, 2. Oh my goodness. Ecological destruction. Imbalance turns to irreversible damage. A river dries out. A lake turns sour. Animals die. Bad luck or bad choices. What is lost forever? Remove a terrain feature and a resource. Interesting. I mean, we could remove the river. That would be really wild. So here's an interesting pitch. So there is a Titan. I drew him in a past stream briefly. What is his name? Let me go grab the file because I can just pull it up. Okay, so there's Droma. There we go. Nelio. This guy is kind of a titan of creation and change, and basically what I picture his destruction looking like is he kind of crawls around and just forcefully terraforms things. So like maybe he just kind of crawled by one day and then the river was just gone. Cuz we got to have some Titan interactions here and there. Yeah, irreversible damage. Let's make this as devastating as possible. He comes through. People are scared. People are dying. People are hiding. And this river is gone. Which I think then would invite people to sort of move around. So why don't we go ahead and establish this district down here, our misery district, for the growth phase. That'll make sense. So what do they do now? Three, four, six. What is 3, 4, 6? An economic revolution. Production or consumption dramatically transform. Some shopping or magic automation. How does this transform the city? Or in this case, the country? Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think their economic production does have to rapidly reform. I think they're forced to... I think they're going to be forced to make new territory. I'm gonna go ahead and draw these lines in here, just to establish where everything's at. And I think maybe we start moving to the other side of the mountains. I think they have to risk it. Because again, we don't have misery yet. I think they have to leave the safety of the forested side and kind of go out into the open in order to keep doing what they're doing. I imagine they've got a pretty good trade route going with our established roads up here. Cool. Next is 415. Let's see what that brings us. 415. Grief spreads. Thousands of widowers or widows weeping on the streets, or the loss of a beloved icon. What has caused this? How does this express itself? Add a landmark. Interesting. So everyone is sad. I think we have to establish a new city up here. I think that's our landmark. And then for development phase, let's go ahead and establish another territory. Maybe over here. Sure. Okay, 5, 2, 3 is our next one. A lot of 5s. 523, a place of worship. A temple, a cathedral, a pyramid, or blood sacrifices. What do people practice here? Does it attract pilgrims from other cities? Interesting. Is this the point where the Titans start to die? I don't know. Because there is a place of worship on the Titan's body. let's tentatively say that the Titan died here and the church is established. And this is the church symbol. So we'll tentatively say that that's what happens. If something else comes along that makes sense for when misery to be founded happens, we can do that. But for now, I think we'll just keep it vague in case we need to come back. And I don't know if I've been counting this properly or not. We shall see. Alright, next is 6, 5, 4. 6 is traditionally not a great one to roll. Six, 5, 4 is fire. A fire of a century tears through the city. Houses burn. People die. Accident or malice. What does the city do to prevent this from happening again? Remove at least 2 districts or landmarks. Forest fire makes sense. I think these kind of coastal ones would get removed. This is where a lot of the woods are. I think it'll burn down. And then there were 3 tokens there, so where are they going to go? They're going to go south. And they're going to go north. And then maybe some more people over here. So we'll just displace all of those. Or actually, maybe they go south. Maybe the fire drives them all down from wherever they're going to. We'll do a growth phase just to get something established up here. And then is that 13? Cool. Next is 3, 5, 4. New industry takes root. What does this industry do? Is it forced on a district? Is it polluting or loud? Is it offensive? Is this the offshoot of a foreign enterprise? Okay, this actually makes a lot of sense for misery. So Titan dies. We establish church. Let's establish the church down here. There's already mining down here. People are forced here because of the fires. And then now they're able to start mining marrow. So I think marrow becomes a resource. I'm just going to put a little cartoon bone. Add a district or a faction. Yeah, I think that makes sense. We kind of added the church when we weren't prompted to, so we'll just say that the church is officially established here. Cool. Love that. And then for the growth phase, let's start repopulating these districts. I still think they have a use. Cool, we're getting there. $314 is our next one. I feel like we've done that one. Oh no, we haven't done this one. A trade war costs dearly. A lack of goods, a lack of access, or a lack of money. The city loses the war and pays. Who is stuck footing the bill? I don't know if a trade war makes sense. I feel like an actual war makes more sense with the new resources of marrow available. I'm gonna roll on the warfare events, which are number 1 on here. I like this direction. I just think it needs a little bit more shaped toward what works for us. So what is 126? Okay, here we go. Creatures terrorize the city. What kind of monster is it? A scourge of hungry dogs or a giant dragon? What drives them into the city? Remove something. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. I think a Titan arrives. Some of this we'll have to kind of reformat toward the end here, but I think that makes a lot more sense. Chronologically, this actually makes more sense to happen before misery is established, so maybe we can reorder events here and say that the Titans arrive. And then what are they going to remove? Technically, we technically we'd remove this mountain from wherever it is. What makes sense here? Maybe. So this place is called Dremlock because it's sort of a play off of Dreamland. I imagine Droma kind of wanders around this country a bit. Um, that dream magic kind of disperses over. So what would get destroyed? I guess we could remove this upper city. Because that's out in the open. That could be interesting. Okay, I need to take a quick break from this. I'm going to mark off the dev phase. I'm going to start formatting the events and kind of writing them down. I'll do it on this layer. Okay. Titans arrive. Refugees come in. Refugees establish their own government. And it does well until I think Nelio arrives. I think he's doing stuff out east. I think that's when this thing forms. I think he terraforms this giant chasm in just a straight line, wreaking havoc. Which causes trade to stop. Which causes the famine to start. Which causes the existing power to restructure. And then Nelio dries the old river. People move away. Because they don't have that resource anymore. They're still mining resources, but you gotta have water if you're gonna thrive. And then, let's see. Droma arrives. Droma arrives and destroys the new city. There we go. Okay. So Droma destroys this new city. So Droma's kind of wandering in this territory now. And people are in there. I think the fires. Ooh, actually, let's reorganize this a little bit for this event. Because the dried river causes forest fire, people flee, and they establish what will be misery. Droma arrives, destroys the new city that was established up north. I think because of the visions and dreams that come with Droma's kind of effect on everything, that kind of starts the new religion. And that's kind of where we're at now. So we've reordered the events a little bit, but I think that'll help make things make more sense. So I'm going to turn that back off, and we're going to just keep developing. So I don't think misery proper is established yet. I think people just move south because everything up here burned down. So there's just seeking protection again. And clearly it's very dangerous to live out here. And I think this becomes sort of a ruin. It's like this ruined city up here. That could be a cool landmark for later. Like, it's a great place for a city, but it's just out in the open. Like, there's no wide forests out here. Those are all on the coast. This is like arid plains. Like, there's definitely green around where the rivers are forming. Then you have this chasm as well. Awesome. Let's continue. This is going to go longer than I anticipated, but I'm having fun with it. 314. We just rolled that before, and I don't think that makes sense yet. So I'm going to re-roll that. 3, 5, 3. Let's see what that gets us. I think I need to roll something that's not in the 3 table. We've rolled 3 a lot, and I feel like we need something different. All right, 166. What is that gonna get us? A border is breached. Who breached it? What is this border? Was it physical or cultural? I don't know. Yeah, so this is still during the era where Titans are roaming. So there's sort of 3 eras to consider. So there's the initial period, the Dark Ages, where Titans are roaming. There's a period of peace, where the Titans are asleep, and there's a period of time where the Titans are reawakened and then used in warfare. So I think we need to take that into consideration with everything. I'm wondering if it's time to do something different with this. Because we have 25 dev phases. And we need to kind of establish all of those eras as we lead up into Misery. So now, as opposed to the traditional way we should be playing this game, I think we do need to be a bit more picky and choosy about what things are happening. Because I like this initial story of like people coming in, establishing themselves, forcing people to follow their customs just out of safety, and then a bunch of catastrophic stuff happens. Yeah, river dries up. They move their city over here. It gets destroyed immediately because they're just out in the open. So then people are fleeing south because of the fire, because everything's all dry up here now. So we need an era where the Titans are asleep, and we need an era where the Titans are reawakened. So maybe, now that we're a little over halfway in, maybe this is our peace era. So maybe we hold off on the war for now. Let's pick a table to roll on. So I'll let you guys choose what we're going to roll on. We can roll for politics. I think we'll avoid warfare for now. We could do economy. We could do culture. Culture makes a lot of sense, actually. We could do infrastructure. That also makes sense. I'm going to say 1 and 6 are off the table. I think it's going to be 2 through 5. So infrastructure, culture, economy, politics. What should we roll on? Just so we have a couple development phases during the peaceful era. I see a vote for politics. Let's do politics. We can do more than one, for sure. A meteoric rise. Someone rises to power. What deceit or duplicity led to this increase in status? Who gets left behind to stew in their jealousy? A faction gains power. I'm going to say at this point in its history, we're kind of past refugees and native citizens. I think we can kind of just combine those together. There's definitely going to be people at odds with one another, but I think they're more united now. So I'm just going to say the government, which I guess makes more sense for the refugees because they kind of force their government to be established. And then someone rises to power. So I think the government gains more control. I do want to rename the other faction to something else. Just because we're getting further into this. Maybe the education. I think that would thrive in this. So I think ideas are back on the table. I think the government gets established. I think we could probably start repopulating this area. I think at this point the forest is growing back. And I'm going to say, just because it makes sense, that we're going to get a new little city down here. So we've got this island. We've got the coast. The rivers aren't established yet, so this is not here yet. We're going into the peaceful era. And this was unaffected by the wildfires. I think the fires were mainly up in this area. So we can bring that down to 15. We'll bring this down to 10. Let's do a few more peaceful ones. Let's do an economy roll just to see what we get. 352. Complementary resource. From hunting game to bonecraft artistry, from mining to fine metalwork, the city expands its methods. Shrewd invention or widespread practice. Add a resource to an existing resource. I don't know if that one makes sense yet. I'm going to re-roll that one. It does make sense for later. 4-4? What does that one do? Ah, that one doesn't make any sense either. I need like 3 turns of peace and like good things to happen. Maybe we could choose one. Something positive. Exports increase. A new need. Dice change. Oh, maybe a new trade route. That would make sense. In Misery, no. No. Misery doesn't exist yet. This is like... It's weird playing this game because, like... This game is meant to be, like, one city's whole history within a country. We're kind of expanding that outward to a bigger scale, so we're doing this over, like... Literally, this is, like, thousands of years of history we're going through on this stream. Yeah, I think a trade route would make sense for an economic boom. What layer was that on? It was on this one. I think they established this like coastal route because I have that as a route going through Misery, which again doesn't exist yet, but it'll be good to have. Because it's, again, kind of dangerous to live out here, but I think we could establish a couple trade routes, because we haven't... There's another Misery trade route that goes, like, up and out through here. So, like, using the... Using the rivers would make sense. So we've got kind of this loop going around. Era of peace. Maybe this city gets maybe this city gets rebuilt on top of the old city because it's a really good location. Oh.
Sorry, I can only do that if something is playing.
Siri, I wasn't talking to you. I said city and Siri thought I was speaking to her. So I'm going to establish the city again next to this one.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I'm not talking to you. I love technology. Okay. So we've got trade route going up through there. That makes sense. Again, this is like the big boom of prosperity. Maybe there's a city that gets established out here. That would make sense. I think I'm going to reform some of these districts to match with what makes sense for this city. So maybe they split this one down like that. So this will bring us down to 9. I think we're at 13 left. We'll count them at the end. We'll make sure. But that makes sense. I also don't need this anymore. Cool. Getting down to 12. Okay, let's do one more peaceful turn. We'll roll on the culture table. Okay. I'll bring this on screen so you can see it. I rolled a great fear. What could possibly terrify a whole city? Or a whole country in this case? Is it a monster, a virus, a curse, a foreign army, or just inflated rumors of a hawkish neighbor? A faction gains power. I think we need to add a military for the mages. I think there's rumors that people are trying to resurrect the Titans from their slumber. Military. What's a good military symbol? I guess I can do something like that. Yeah, so I think there's this era of peace. All these like new cities are being established. We've got one down here, not where Misery's at because it doesn't exist yet. We got one by this chasm. I think there's probably some mining happening there. That could be a really interesting city to look at. Or territory. We've got these sort of river cities being established. I think there's a few probably over here on this side. Oh, hello. We have someone new in the chat. Welcome. Let me introduce you to kind of what we're doing. Yeah, for sure. So I'm playing a map making game that I use for world building. It's called Ex Novo. I'll show you the title here. And so you could play this with multiple people. I'm playing it solo with you guys, to sort of establish the history of the country that the world of this channel takes place in. So this is Children of Misery. It's a tabletop setting that I've been working on for like 2-ish years on and off, and I decided to make a channel out of it. And I've done a lot of work into the city itself that's called Misery, but I haven't done very much development into the country that it's in called Dremlock. So I'm using this as a tool. We're kind of we're sort of breaking the rules of this a little bit. We're expanding it to work with an entire country as opposed to just one city. But I really like this as just a format to frame everything in, because it builds your city chronologically, it establishes culture, it establishes histories and like power factions. It's really fun. And they currently have a Kickstarter going right now for the physical edition and a second edition of this game. So I felt like playing it because I really like it. It's from Shark Bomb Studios, so I highly encourage you to check it out. But where we're at currently, this is... I'll pull up the old city map. So this is our current like fantasy city. This is Misery. It's a coastal city. That's what we know. There's the mountains backing it, and then there's a dead Titan god, and they mine they mine magic out of him to make magic items. So I've already done this game through all the way once with just this city and to establish the setting, because the whole campaign takes place in this one city. But I wanted more context for kind of world history. So I'm doing the country now. So this is kind of where Misery's at, but Misery does not exist yet. We haven't gotten there yet. I just put it there as a place marker. And where we're at currently with our timeline that we have so far, I've been writing it down. There's a couple different eras in the world. So there's an era before magic is in the world. And then there's the era like after magic enters the world. And when magic enters the world, these titans, these like physical manifestations of magic, roam around and destroy everything, because who doesn't love big giants stomping around? So the Titans arrive, they wreak havoc, and refugees flock to this kind of coastal area because it's wooded and up against mountains. This is partially inspired where I live. I'm in the Pacific Northwest in the U.S., which has a big mountain range and lots of forested, wet areas over here. And then to the east of the mountains, it's very like open and dry. So not as many people live on that side because it's not as much resources, and also in the context of Titans, very dangerous to be out in the open. So most people are over on this left side here. But so all these refugees flock in. They establish a government. There's a couple. There's a Titan that arrives and makes this big chasm. His name is Nelio. He's a really troublesome Titan to deal with because he basically terraforms everything as he goes along. It's like a, as opposed to like outright Godzilla destruction, I wanted something that caused like ecological destruction. So I think across the world there are things like this where like there's just terrain features that like don't make sense to be there. So Titans are stomping around. They stop trade for a bit to let things cool off. But because they're not trading, they're not getting as much food. So famine starts. Power restructure happens. Uh, this guy that made the chasm eventually makes his way over here. There used to be a river where this city is, and he completely dries up the river, which basically removes any major resources that that city used to have. So people move away. They start flocking toward the like northern coastline and the southern coastline. Because the river is no longer there, things get really dry, and a forest fire erupts kind of on this side, and that forced our population to grow down here and up here because people were fleeing. A new Titan arrives, Droma, the one that will eventually die here, but we haven't gotten there yet. Droma destroys this city, so that's why we've got some ruins up there. A new religion is established because everywhere Droma goes, weird visions and dreams happen to people, so they start a whole religion off of that. And now we've sort of entered this era of peace. So there's a time when the Titans are roaming around, and now we're in the era where they're not. They've been put to sleep, so people are mastering magic, and they essentially just put the Titans into nap time for a while. But now we're going to enter this wild era. There's rumors that there are like war mages trying to resurrect the Titans to conquer the world. So we've just established a military. And that's where we're at. And we're getting close to catching up to the point where the campaign takes place. The only things left, we have 9 more development phases. But we need to establish war, because there's a huge war that involves the Titans. Basically working with different countries, and it just wreaks havoc across the globe. It's like basically a second Dark Age. So we're just going to keep going. And I think it would be appropriate to roll on our warfare table. So I'm going to do that, and we'll see what happens. Uh, 162, a massive wall is built. Fortifications are constructed to protect the city who's paying for it. So this one we did for our city one. I don't know if this makes as much sense for the entire country. I do think it makes sense to fortify the country. I'm actually going to go with 163, the one right below it. I think that makes more sense than the massive wall, because you're not going to build... I guess you could build a wall around your entire country. I mean, China did that to keep the Mongols out, but the terrain here is so different, and we have this kind of a natural wall of mountains for protection. So I'm just going to say general defenses are upped. So I'm going to put some military bases around. I think that would make sense. So put one there. We'll put one up here as well. This is a very busy district, but that makes sense. I think pretty much wherever there's a city, there would be a military base. And other resources. Yeah, I think that works. And I'm not going to add any new districts there, but we will mark off our development phase. We got 8 left. And we'll roll again. Should we do a random one, or should we roll on the warfare table again? True. Yeah, it would gain a lot of power. I just rolled... I just rolled a 161 for a random one. That's literally what we just did. I'm going to re-roll. Okay, we'll do a random one. 443. That's our random. Oh, this is the Thinkers and Philosophers one. We've rolled this one already. I think we need a new one. So let's do another random one. Because that's when the education faction got established. Okay, it's another 4-1, so 463. Same category. Okay. A new belief appears. What could convince a good citizen to abandon old ideas? Is the new belief widely accepted? Does this cause cultural tensions with the wider world? Add a faction. New religion just dropped. We have a religion for Droma for dreams. Maybe there's another faction that kind of pops in for a different Titan. Because that's something that I've established in my other world building that I've done on my own, is just different magic kind of influences religion, and they follow the sort of teachings of each type of magic. So maybe... Oh, you know what? There's a type of magic that centers around just like power. I feel like with the military being as established as it is now, what is the Titan called? Two religions have interesting clashes. I agree. This is my other document that I was working on. I need my notes. Validus? Is that the name of the other one? Un momento. I'm gonna find my I'm gonna find my Titan notes. Because I do want to pick the religion that makes sense. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'll read it from my wiki. Validus, I think, makes the most sense. This has to do with power and healing, which I think for war makes a lot of sense. This Titan's magic focuses on releasing energy into the world around you. That energy can be a positive force for healing or a negative force for destruction. Those who worship Validus often reflect on the energy within themselves and what their actions do to the world around them. Every choice has a cause and effect. The month of Validus is a time of putting action the goals and dreams that have yet to be complete for the year, ensuring there's enough time and energy to complete them. It is also a time to reflect on how your dreams affect others and whether they are worth pursuing. I don't think it's necessarily heresy religion. I think it's more so just different times call for different strengths, and I think right now people really are looking for strength. So let's make a symbol for Validus, like a symbol of power. What can we do? I feel like something like sharp. Maybe something like that, and then give it a power token. I think that belief is on the rise. So still under church, but I think I like the idea of like this militaristic religion sort of popping up, like a star or something. Oh, I like star. Shield makes more sense for a different one. So maybe I'll keep this one here. It's just meant to be an abstract symbol as long as it's different. But yeah, I think that gets established. Let's continue. 334. Let's see what we got here. Economic boom. Add a resource, a faction gains power. I'm going to add magic as a resource. And I think the military gains power. I think there's a boom because they're focused on training mages, weapon production. You know, the Titans. If the Titans are coming back, Dremlock needs to be prepared. So that's 7. And we haven't added a district in a while. Yeah. New magic tech. I think I'll establish this big area down south just as its own big district. And we'll add a token to it. Great. Love that. We only have 7 left. I really want to establish this warfare with Titans and its destruction. So I feel like for that, we should choose something from the warfare table. We've done a lot of prepping. I think things are probably happening in other sides of the world. But in terms of, like, big picture history, I want to get through this. City militarizes. I think that's kind of already happening. An army is raised. Yes, I think that's already happening. We could just go for straight war. This one just does not seem to end, even though it's long since ran out of steam. Who's the enemy? Why can't the city let go? That one would make a lot of sense, because there's a pretty long era of warfare once the Titans are back and actually being controlled by different countries. Remove a district, add an external faction. Yeah, we could remove a district. We could also establish the Titan as a external faction. There we go. Big Titan. A clash between 2 religions. That makes it work. True. I feel like at this point, there is sort of a survival instinct happening. I think people are leaning on this religion quite a bit during this time period. Maybe there are big tensions between them. But at the same time, we do have Titans roaming around, destroying everything. Alright, what district should we remove? What does the Titan destroy? Misery has not been established yet. This is a big city down here. This is a big city up here. This is another city that was destroyed. We could destroy it again. We also have this one by the chasm. I feel like those are all fair game for being destroyed. One, two, three, four. I'll let you guys decide which one we're destroying. Any of them would make sense. There's no wrong answer. But as per the prompt, we must destroy something. I see a vote for 4. It is kind of out in the open. Oh, a vote for 3. Yeah, I think either one of those would make sense. We could destroy both. I would not be opposed to that for the sake of the story. What do you guys think? Should we destroy one or both of those cities? Destroy both. Okay. Okay. Gotta find what layer these are on. How long before Misery's in this? Very soon. Very, very soon. Again, this is all happening over... It all seems like really quick, but this is all over thousands and thousands of years, so I need to establish some, like, basic history. And I'm going to reformat this afterward as well. I'm going to redraw over it. Not in this stream. Maybe in my free time I'll go through and make a country map and tweak everything, because, like, because I showed you the map from before when I was playing this game from doing the city. It ends up quite a bit different because I need to make sure that everything is consistent. Okay, so now we just have an incredible amount of destruction. I imagine these militaries probably also get obliterated during that process. And we're just gonna... I think we just remove these citizen tokens. From those districts. I think that's the consequence. We got 6 left. I think at this point, so with the war ravaging on, it makes sense that we can probably establish Misery now. With the last couple phases. So I'm going to go through, we'll try to find an event that makes sense for that. We need something destructive, something that signifies the death of the Titans, because now we have Titans fighting each other. So maybe they resurrect Droma at some point. And that's why Dremlock is the way it is, because that's the Titan that was fighting for them. Another one probably came in and destroyed all of this, and then you go to war with them, with your Titan. It's basically Pacific Rim style. Big fights, big magic fights. But we need to kill Droma so that we can get Misery. I'm going to go down to environmental events because those tend to be very destructive. We could do extinction. Extinction would signify the end of the Titans, because during this campaign, it is already established that all of the Titans are dead. This is all like history going into it. Because I like the idea of this like old world where like these big exciting things happen. Oh, here. This is probably more exciting if you guys can see it too. I'm just looking through the table of events. Sign of the end times, unexplained phenomena. All of that kind of comes into play once the Titans are extinct. Tsunami or earthquake. I could see earthquake from the battle that ensues between two Titans. Add or remove a terrain feature or landmark. Oh yeah, that actually works really well. We can classify it as a couple things. Basically, the Titan is going to die here where the skull is. Its body will be there, and then the City of Misery is established on top of it, so that becomes a new city. And then let's go... We'll go ahead and mark that as dev phase. So we've got 5 left. So let's do 5 random ones just to end this. I've lost my dice. Good thing I've got more on my desk. Okay, random one. 5, 2, 6. Yeah, 5, 2, 6. A grand place of culture. A city builds a monumental place or refined culture. A theater opens an opera or electronic sports. Who sponsored it? Who performs here? I mean, we just established a new city. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. Actually, the landmark that has to be there would be the clock tower, because that's like the landmark in the city. That's like a cultural touch point for everyone. So that actually works perfectly. And then, yeah, we'll just keep going. 4, 1, 2. Let's see what 4, 1, 2 has for us. We're almost done. Great joy. An ancient enemy is brought low. A disease cured or a good and undeemable omen. How do people celebrate? How do they remember this event? At a district. I mean, the Titans would be extinct. Drome is not the last Titan to die. But I think it would make sense that there would be this kind of staggered In fact, maybe a couple of years later, maybe a decade later, the Titans are finally extinct, and there's a great joy. Add a district. I guess we could we could reestablish this northern city again for the third time. Now that we know that there's no Titans that are gonna destroy it, maybe it's a good time to bring that back. And I'll build another civilization up there. And we'll mark off a citizen token. I think I think that would be their defiant act, is just rebuilding this city again. It kind of makes sense too. We'd have a major city kind of on the southern side and a major city up on the northern side. And I think Misery is going to become much, much bigger than this one, but I think this one is still a good historical touch point. Oh, actually, I should make a note. I'm going to make a note of this on a sticky note for later for me. It would actually make a lot of sense on the calendar to have like a holiday to celebrate the death of all the Titans. So if you guys have any good names for a holiday that celebrates that, put it in the chat. Maybe I'll add it to our calendar. Do some brainstorming. But we got 4 more phases. We're almost done. 3, 4, 2. Let's see what that has. An unexpected shortage, an embargo, or a blockade, or the collapse of a particular supply chain. What good is exactly in shortage? Is another settlement behind this? Remove a resource. Add an external faction. Okay. An embargo, a blockade. Okay, so they have this new resource of marrow from the Titan down here. I think one of the things I've established in other writings I've done that I haven't shared on the channel yet is people want this. This is a prized resource. You can't just get marrow anywhere. It has to come from a Titan. And there's only 8 Titans total. So it's a very limited resource. So maybe this is the start of like a war with a neighboring country. There's like a blockade that happens. Like they send their ships up and try to take it or force them to hand it over. I don't want to remove the resource because it's not like it's gone. But I do think it's in jeopardy. So maybe there's some rising tensions that'll escalate. 326? What does that have? New production method. Improved tools, clever spells, assembly line, better exploitation, faster goods, cheaper production. Who's making money off of this? That actually makes a lot of sense with industrialization. Add a resource, faction gains power. Let's add a resource of industry. I'll have a little factory down there. Who gains power off of this? I feel like the government probably benefits. Oddly, I feel like the education also greatly benefits from this. I think it's through their innovation that this is possible. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Got two more. One, 4, 3. That is going to be on the warfare table. Oh no! Enemy forces enter the city and destroy or damage a resource. Who sent them and what is their agenda? Add an external faction. Yeah, I think there's a war over this resource. A war for Mara. I think that's when they have to establish their wall around their city that I have on the other map. So another country comes in and tries to take it. Ultima Titanum, the day the last Titan died. Day the people go to the grave of the... Oh, that's kind of fun, like a pilgrimage to your closest Titan grave. I'm gonna write that down. Yeah, because I do have a monastery that gets established on the top of the skull in the city, where people make pilgrimages to. So that would actually make a lot of sense. That gives an actual holiday to do that then, where people flock to the city and just be thankful that these things aren't alive anymore. But yeah, I don't know what country yet. I do have. I think it's the country that this Titan is from, Validus. So I think they are a separate faction. And perhaps the religion loses some of its muster due to the fact that they are the ones attacking Misery now. Because I do need to establish the Church of the Dreamer as the main religion for Misery, so that would actually make sense that this war kind of off-puts people from that. Okay. Three, two, one. What does that get us? Hype. There's one new thing everybody suddenly needs. What is it? Why are people crazy over it? Add a resource. I feel like that would have been established way before when Mara was on the scene. So I'm going to roll again. I like the economy table. I think that would make sense. 6, 1, 4. Or I guess 6, 1 if I'm rolling on this table. Yeah, this one makes more sense. A massive influx of inhabitants. Where do these people come from? How are they welcomed? What new ideas do they bring along? Are they fleeing something or drawn here? Increase the density of a district. Yep, we're gonna increase Misery's density. That makes total sense. I think with their resources and investment into education and industry, that people just are gonna flock to the city. Okay, that is good. We have one more dev phase. This is the last one. Let's go random. That's a 4 and a 2 and a 5. A 4, 2, 5. What do we got? Four, two, five. Outsiders arrive. Where do the newcomers settle? What habitats have they brought along? Or what habits have they brought along? And most importantly, where did they come from? We kind of already did that. I think I'm going to roll again. It's on the culture table. I do like that as a category. So let's roll again and see what we get. 5, 2. 4, 5, 2. It looks like a face to you. I don't know if I see it. Mountains, I guess. Yeah, if this is the ear, if this is kind of like the nose-ish. Yeah, I could see it. Okay, I think we should just choose something for this last phase together. There's a couple options. I could see the seat of government being moved to Misery. That would make a lot of sense because that's where it is anyway. Um, yeah, because this is kind of leading into the current events. We've established the industry. We've established the production method. I think that makes sense. Leadership change also makes sense. I could see that. I don't think we need to do war again. I think the tensions are there. They're established. A time of enlightenment would also make sense. Misery's kind of a big booming place. Religious boom makes sense. I think all these make sense. Yeah, let's go with the seat of government being moved, because I think that being established down here makes a lot of sense. I think they move. We move that there. We establish Misery as a more central location. And then that would end our development phases. There's one more phase to end the game, which is the topping off phase. So basically, with however many tokens we have left, we have 10, we can increase the density of different districts. Naming features, we'll get to that later. I'll get to that in my own time. Okay. Yeah, we have 10-ish. I don't know if I was counting that correctly or not, but we can at least establish where the main hubs of places are. So Misery's already as dense as it can be, and its neighboring district, which kind of extends that. I think that makes sense. We could do... I feel like the northern city would probably get more attention. I don't think it's as big as Misery, but I think it would gain more population. We could reestablish this over here. I don't think it's going to be as big as it used to be, but I think people would live out there. And then we could just do kind of along the coast here. Because that's all along the trade route. Something like that. I don't want to make it too dense, though. This one would make sense to be a little more dense, because it's by the water. This one is also by the water. This one's kind of just an extension of the northern city. Oh my gosh, we could name... So this is Misery down here. What if the northern cities called Woe, and then we would have the two cities of Dremlock, Misery, and Woe? or something like that. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to densify too much else. We've got some more over here that we could establish. We could say that this one kind of spans the gap. They probably have a bridge going over this chasm. That would be cool for a city. But I think that'll give me a good enough template to make something off of. So this is what it looks like now. We've got Dremlock pretty much done. So that's what that looks like currently. Let me grab the... There we go. This is what Misery looked like when I first played this game to establish the city. And then this is the final map again. So there's a lot of refinement that happens between this phase and the next one, so I'll save that to work on in my own time. But thank you so much for joining the stream today, everyone that's here. Let me save this file. No, don't save that. Game's pretty interesting. Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. I definitely have tweaked the rules quite a bit to fit with this setting. Not the traditional way it's played. But I really like it as a framework for world building. It just has a lot of good prompts in it. And it's really well structured. So yeah, if you like it, they got a Kickstarter right now. Check it out. But I'll leave things here, and I'll see everyone in 2 weeks for our next stream. I don't know what it'll be. Maybe we'll come back to an old project and kind of finish it up, because I've started a bunch of stuff on stream. I do have I do have videos in the works, and I'm trying to get them out, but I am also trying to do my job in the daytime, so I've had to put videos on the back burner for a little bit. But hopefully it'll be there soon. But I'll see you next time.